WAC title after Saturday's win over UTRGV. Hard-fought win, tough start on offense. Things kind of got rolling. They're midway through the second half. Just kind of talk about the game as a whole and how that kind of leads into this last WAC road trip of the regular season.
Yeah, we expected a fight, and we certainly got one. Rio Grande was ready to play, and we knew they would be. For whatever reason, we got off to a poor start, took a couple silly shots, had some breakdowns defensively, settled down, made some shots, got our confidence back, and then it was a battle. It was a battle. I thought we got a rebounding back where we like it. That was probably the biggest positive takeaway is how we rebounded the ball on both ends of the floor, and we continued to share the ball, and the ball is going through the net at a good rate as well. So happy to get the win because we had put a lot into that. We had all week to prepare. We had built that game up for a chance to play a team that was hot and that expected to win. It was going to feel like a WAC Vegas type game, and that's the way it felt to us. And then obviously, the chance to cut down nets and share a regular season championship with our home fans was a priority as well.
I know we talked about this after the game, but just kind of what happens now. I mean, with 3 regular season games, I think the outsider's opinion is just like, well, they have it They have it wrapped up. What's the play for now?
To win. I mean, to continue to win. We have a streak going on. We got a WAC streak going on. We got a current winning streak going on this particular season. And so we'll put pressure on them. We'll talk about we don't want those streaks to end. We want to take these best shots we're about to take on the road. And we understand that the target's bigger now. And I want our kids to feel it. I want them to know that these games are still as important. And there'll be a bunch of reasons why that we'll talk about internally. But again, I said it Saturday, and I feel the same way today. This group's been great in terms of staying focused and really having a mantra of trying to get better every day. I know it's a tired cliche, but that's what you got to do when you play college basketball and it's a long season. And you have opportunities to get better because it's such a long season. And we have room to grow, and we need to get better. We've got to get better. I thought we have gotten better recently. We certainly got better last week, and we need to do the same going forward.
I know Jabari's been leading with his scoring, but there were a few moments during the game where things got chippy, and it was Jabari who got the team together on the floor. Did you notice that at all?
I did. And that's certainly a sign of personal growth for him as a rising sophomore. That's great to see. Normally, it's him in practice that's in the middle of chaos, either with his teammates or me. But so it was nice to see him understand that we didn't need any of that, that's what hurt our team. And he actually talked about it a little bit after the game about that as well. So that was growth for him and certainly for our team. And, we're proud of how our guys play and how our guys act. I mean, people that have watched us over 3 years, we don't get flagrant fouls and technical fouls, and knock on wood, hopefully that will continue, and that's important to me. Certainly it's an emotional game, it's an intense game, and it's easy to cross over that line, but I always feel like no one has a right to do that, and we talk about that all the time. And if we ever get close to that line, we share it in the video room and point it out. And at that point, when their emotions are more even keeled, they understand it. But it's when they have to understand it when the game's in balance and something's going on. But again, I'm proud of our guys, the way they handle themselves on the court, certainly with their play, but even when those situations arise.
That scoring stretch that Terrell went on late in the first half, was that old school Terrell? Did that remind you of last year?
Absolutely. Coming off an injury, for him to play that well is an encouraging sign going forward. And he's a big part of who we are. When he battled that groin injury in the fall, that was hard for everybody, certainly mostly for him, but for his teammates and for us, to have him out there and you want him to play like he's capable of, but he just couldn't. But he kept, waking up every day and being a warrior for his teammates and for our program. He certainly went as his best. And now, coming down the stretch of his senior year, even though he had that, foot sprain, he looks good and he handled it well. And he's the type of guy that doesn't, he can miss days and still have his cardio in tip-top shape. He's just one of those guys that's always in good cardiovascular shape. So it felt good. I'm sure it felt great to him. I know the fans loved it, and we need him to play like that down the stretch.
How close is Trev, and how important is this stretch of games to kind of get him back? It seems like, he looks like he's coming around, but he's still not quite there at 100%.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think we could have asked for a better scenario when he went down, and once he elected to have the surgery instead of playing through it, he came back early. He came back a week earlier than anyone had predicted. So to get those practices and then more importantly those games in where he was on a minute restriction. We played 13 and 15 minutes in those 2 games, and then have a whole week, with some days off to just try to get that rhythm back and keep knocking that rust off. And then I agree, on Saturday he certainly wasn't in tip top, but he was better. His productivity was better. He was moving better. When I watched the video, I was impressed with his defense. He certainly had a couple breakdowns, but he also had some good plays that we'll show him today. And I just feel like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but he's going to get back there before Vegas. We've got a couple weeks and 3 games. And so that transition period back to trying to get to where he was, if he hadn't come back early, then I'd be a little more nervous, of him getting back to full strength before the WAC tournament games. But now, because of how it's played out, I feel pretty good about where he's at and getting to where he needs to be before it's over.
Can you talk about how you guys match up with Grand Canyon and just what you're expecting out of the game?
We're going to take everything they got. They're coming off a tough road swing. We all know how hard it is to travel to Orem and Seattle and play those programs back to back, and I'm sure they're not happy with the results, and I'm sure they're going to have some meetings and practices and video sessions, and get everybody on the same page, and they got 3 games at home, so I'm sure they want to get back on the winning track, and we're going to play a wounded animal that's going to come out fighting, and we know the crowd there is packed and frenetic and fun to play in front of. Our guys, have always enjoyed those type of environments, and I'm pretty confident they will again. But, we just got to understand that we're going to take their best shot, and they certainly are capable of beating us.
In terms of just kind of going back through some video and watching Johnny and the way that he dunks the basketball, in terms of just like sheer getting the crowd out of their chairs. I mean, just how good, how important is it to have a player like that can it just seems like he's all energy.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the size and the athleticism, that combination, is it's fun to have him, and I think because he's a local product, that probably helps as well. But a lot of his dunks, you can anticipate them. You see him coming, and so I think the crowd anticipates them as well. And he doesn't dunk like that very often in practice. He kind of holds it and waits for games, which is fine by me. But it's an explosive move now. I mean, when he does it, he gets off the floor quick, and it's explosive and dynamic, and he dunks it with some ferociousness, if you will. That's probably not the correct pronunciation of that, but I'm not sure if that's a word either. But, dunks are worth 2 points, but we all know, I mean, they're momentum changers because of the crowd, and you can be on both ends of it. Certainly at home, they can provide a boost to everybody, but on the road, sometimes they cause you to call a timeout. They're momentum changers, and certainly Johnny's one of the guys that's capable of doing that for us.
It seems like a real popular time right now for bracketology and kind of going through numbers, whether they be KenPom rankings, whether they be net rankings. What is your opinion on just kind of how a basketball team is judged? I mean, you guys for example, when you guys started this 16-game winning streak, you guys were in the top 80 half of net rankings, and now you're outside the top 100. Is that a fair way to judge a basketball team?
That's be a long conversation to talk about that and how we've got here as an industry. And, there's been recent changes. I don't know all the details of how they come up with the net, but that's what they're using now, along with other metrics that are in the room. And unfortunately for us, we just, our numbers, computer-wise, metrics, however you want to call it, aren't great. They're just not. Certainly, what's most important to us is winning and winning championships. But unfortunately, we don't have a shot at an at-large opportunity because of that. We just don't have the numbers that would back up a resume. But in terms of if that's the right way to do it, wrong way to do it, it's hard. It's hard to compare conferences and road wins and neutral wins and home wins and who you play. And I mean, there's a lot of math to it, and there's a lot. Certainly the eye test comes into play as well. But we don't talk about it in here. We don't think about it too much. It is what it is. This year, we try to put together a schedule where we could be in the conversation if we could win a bunch of games. But with the injuries, et cetera, and we were 6-6 at one point. We knew at that point it was going to be, let's win a conference championship and try to win the conference tournament to get in back to the dance. And that's where we're at. And we've been in that position for quite some time.
What was the players' reaction to the crowd Saturday?
I'm not out there for warm-ups, but I always ask a couple guys, how warm-ups are going, and I don't know why I do that, but I do. I'm usually afraid of the answer, but the responses I got from my moles were, they were ready, and certainly I'm sure the crowd had something to do with that. But these kids, I don't care if it's home or road. They love playing in those environments. They're not intimidated by it at all, even on the road. And that's a comforting feeling as a coach. And they're excited that we won a championship. For some of these guys, it's the first time they've ever done it. For some of them, it's old hat, if you will. They've won 2 or 3 of them now since we've arrived. And I think for us as a staff, now that we know a little more historical perspective of this program, it means a lot to us. I mean, in the 12 years before we got here, they had won 2 outright championships and shared 1 in the WAC. So we've been in the WAC for 15 years now. In the 12 years before we got here, they won 2 and they shared 1. And then if you go back for the 20 years, in the 5 years prior to that in the Sun Belt, they shared 1 divisional championship. Okay, or had 1 divisional championship at the end of the 2 seed. They didn't win the whole thing, but they won their division when it was split in the Sun Belt. So if you go back 20 years, if you count the 17 years prior to us getting here, they won 4, outright 2, shared 1, and then won a division championship. And we've won 3 in a row. And so when you arrive at a program like this with all the history, and everybody equates winning in New Mexico State basketball together because of not just the recent history, but long before that as well. To be able to leave a mark already feels good for our players and our coaches because once I learned that information, the folks around here think it's their birthright that they just win championships every year. And as I was, looking into it and being informed about it, I'm like, well, they've certainly, won a ton of conference tournament titles. That's kind of what they've won. That's why the reputation is what it is because they've won so many darn conference tournament championships, and earned the right to play in the NCAA tournament. That's what's amazing. But if you look at just regular season numbers and regular season championships won, that feels good to know that we're leaving our own mark on this program while we're here.
In terms of environment and playing for something, is it beneficial in the sense that first game after you guys clinch, you guys go to a place that is what it is, and obviously, I mean, these guys have, no trouble getting up for Grand Canyon.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. When the schedule comes out, you start looking at it and you're like, wow, what a way to close, Rio Grande, we knew they were going to be good, and they've always played us tough. And then we got this road trip, and then Cal Baptist, we have a lot of respect for, that's beaten us. The last 4 games were daunting to look at back in, the fall when you were looking at the conference schedule and how it would play out. And, Grand Canyon, obviously we've talked about them, but Bakersfield, they had to travel Friday, play Saturday. They've given us fits for years now. Who knows what they'll be playing for at that point. Try to figure that out. There's 6 teams, 2 through 7 that are scrambling and trying to, play for seeding and situations. And, I don't spend too much time looking at it because I think it's just too hard to figure out right now. I think after this weekend, it'll play out the way it's going to play out. But definitely having these two games and the respect we have for these programs and to have to go on the road will help the motivation of our players and our team to play well.